May peace be with you. My name is Yeshua. Or as you say today, Jesus, you certainly know my story, so I won't repeat it and bore you with what you already know. In the name of our Father, I stand before you in your time and your relative reality, guiding the author so he can leave a testimony from me to all of you. In this era of evolutions and revolutions, of progress and chaos, I observe the world I loved and for which I gave my life, with eyes full of love but also deep regret. I see your society and feel the need to speak, not as a stern judge, but as a concerned brother, a friend who wishes the best for you. In the history of humanity, my life has been a turning point, a sign of hope and transformation. But who am I really? I was a man like many, yet different, chosen by our Father as a messenger and witness of his immense love. I walked the dusty roads of Galilee, shared daily life with fishermen, peasants, outcasts, and those excluded from society at the time. I taught, I healed, I listened. I will tell you my story not only as it has been handed down, but as I lived it with my thoughts, my emotions, my hopes. I was a man like all of you with all your weaknesses and temptations. That night in the Garden of Gethsemane was one of the darkest and most difficult of my life. As I prayed, I was tormented by anguish, feeling the inexorable approach of my fate. The air was charged with tension, the silence broken only by my sighs and prayers. The betrayal of Judas, one of my own, struck me deeply, not so much for the act itself, but for the pain of seeing a beloved friend so lost. When I was arrested, I looked into the eyes of my disciples. The terror, the confusion, the sense of helplessness. I felt alone, deeply alone. Certain things you cannot understand, and I will not dwell on explaining them. Let's just say I felt and saw things in a different light from all of you. During my earthly life, I took a special journey that made me one with our Father. Certain things I saw because I saw into your souls, I felt your hearts. I knew from the beginning who Judas was and what he would come to do. I prayed in my heart that he would change, but his heart was closed, driven by his egocentrism and his political thinking. Judas appeared that night before me, smiled and kissed me. I wept. I was sad not only for myself, but because I saw in him a great cold and distant black shadow. So I was arrested and brought before the high priests. During the trial, my sense of isolation grew. In front of Pilate, I found myself at the mercy of false accusations, crowd shouts, glares of hatred and fear. There was an atmosphere of frenzy, a collective desire to see someone pay, even if innocent. I felt the weight of every word, every accusation, every glance. Yet in my heart there was also a deep calm, a sense of acceptance of what was about to happen. The flogging was an experience of extreme physical pain. Each blow was an assault on my flesh, but also on my spirit. I was exposed, vulnerable, humiliated. I felt the blood flowing down my body. Every breath was an effort. Carrying the cross along the Via Dolorosa was a journey of suffering and loneliness under the gaze of a crowd that now mocked me, now wept. On that journey, every step was an act of will, every fall a moment of despair and inner strength. When I was nailed to the cross, every hammer strike echoed like a reflection of humanity's failure to comprehend the message of love I had tried to bring. Suspended between heaven and earth, on my completely bloodied and swollen wrists, I felt the weight of my humanity in all its fragility. My mouth was parched with thirst, my body torn by pain, my heart weighed down by abandonment. The words of mockery and ridicule reached me as if distant, blurred by the veil of pain. In those moments of extreme suffering, I also confronted my human weaknesses, the fear, the disappointment, the feeling of having been abandoned by everyone, even, in a moment of despair, by my Father. I felt a deep longing for understanding, for acceptance, for love. Even in that extreme moment, my thoughts went out to my executioners, to the crowd, to my disciples, and I prayed for them. My last words on the cross were a mix of despair and hope, of abandonment and total trust in my Father. My God, why have you forsaken me?" was a cry of human pain, an expression of my deep suffering. Yet even in that cry, there was trust that despite everything, my message of love would survive. My death was a moment of liberation, an end to earthly suffering, but also the beginning of something new, a hope that would span the centuries. Our Father fully repaid me for my suffering and gave me his greatest gift, himself. Reliving these events, revisiting those moments, leads me to reflect on the fragility and strength of the human being. My story is one of unconditional love, of extreme sacrifice, but also of profound humanity. My hope is that through the story of my passion, my death, people may find inspiration to live with more love, more compassion, more humility, always remembering that even in the deepest pain there is hope and redemption. I will not speak of your religions and your politics. This does not concern me. It does not matter to me whether you are Catholic or Muslim or Hindu. You are all my brothers and sisters, and heaven awaits you all, regardless of thought form and color. Of course, the path will be much longer the more closed your heart and distant your soul. But there is one thing you must understand, an essential point for me to continue in my story. In this reality of yours, you're all useful, some more, some less. In your society, you need everyone and everyone's contribution. You are all gears in a system you call society. However, none of you is indispensable. In this reality, you are necessary, but not indispensable. No matter how important you may be, you are still not fundamental. For our Father, it's exactly the opposite. What does he care for a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer? For our Father, you are fundamentally all useless, but at the same time, you are all indispensable. You are all his children, and as such, you are part of him. It makes me smile when in your religions, so rich in fantasy, you excommunicate each other. Can our Father excommunicate himself? It's all much simpler. You paint him as an old man with a great white beard, severe and ready to judge you, loving to those who follow his law, and tremendously severe and vengeful towards those who do not respect the rules you have given yourselves, attributing them to him. You call this justice, and for you, justice is synonymous with revenge, retribution. You have created our Father in your image and likeness, with all your pettiness and abominations. You justify every wish of yours as divine law, every action with the term holy. In your religions, when you will stand before him, you will tremble and weep, because you will fear his judgment, which will be harsh and severe. Do you want to know who our Father really is? Do you want to know what heaven really is? To do so, close your eyes and focus on one of the most beautiful moments of your life, a moment when your soul and your heart rejoiced, when your mother or your father or a loved one showed you a great gesture of affection and love, or when your child was born, or when you overcame a terrible moment. Feel those sensations again within you, that moment. Now multiply those beautiful sensations by 100 million, and it's exactly half of how you would feel when you are in heaven and before our Father. But the journey is long and very tormented, and the more closed your heart, and the darker your soul, the more painful and tormented that journey will be. You will try to replace those feelings with other things, ephemeral values that will only give you a brief and fleeting sense of pleasure. And the more closed your heart becomes, the more you will seek, like a drug, those other things that will satisfy your ego, such as lust, power, greed. You will be willing to commit any abomination just to have them. You will become so dependent on these things that you will use all your precious time to obtain them. And every time you succeed in your intent, you will want more and more and more. You will never have enough. Why? Because these things will not give you what you have been seeking from the beginning, happiness. Do you know what will be your greatest regret when you are about to leave this life? Time, that precious gift that was given to you and that you wasted neglecting everything that would have truly made you happy and aware. After all of you are in this reality for one thing, the pursuit of happiness. Do you know what will be your greatest regret when you are about to leave this life? Time, that precious gift that was given to you and that you wasted neglecting everything that would have truly made you happy and aware. After all of you are in this reality for one thing, the pursuit of happiness. To do so and to follow that path of search, you will need no one. You are alone, and you will educate yourselves alone. But you are proud. You feel righteous. And you do not have a shred of humility. You are so proud that you sanctify yourselves, granting yourselves roles and indulgences. Hypocrites. You feel like instruments of the Lord and define your followers as servants of the Lord. Which Lord? Certainly not my Father. He has no servants. As I said before, he does not need them. And if he needs something, rest assured that he will ask you personally and will not stop loving you even if you say no. Blind leading the blind, it is no coincidence when I told the presumed righteous that prostitutes and sinners would reach heaven even before them. As I said, the more closed your heart is in this reality, the harder and more tormented your heart and your path will be on the other side. And do not think that when you die and pass to the other side, everything will be clearer. and you will be able to take the right path. On the other side, it will be even worse, and your journey will be even harder and more painful. As closed as your heart is in this reality, so it will be on the other, if not more. But as I said, our Father will not do without any of you. He does not know hatred. He does not know revenge. His sense of justice is very different from what you perceive today. You will understand it only when you truly open your heart. Once seeing a brother of ours who in this world committed terrible abominations, things so abominable, his soul was so dark that it even made heaven appear dark. Father, this one has committed unclean abominations. He has committed so many abominations as to darken the sky. This one here will take 10 billion years to understand and find the right path. Do you know what he answered me? Then in 10 billion years I will be there, ready to wait for him and embrace him again. It will not be our Father who will give you pain and torment, but you yourselves, you will do it yourselves as you have always done. When you are before our Father, you will understand because your heart will be so full of joy that you will not even be able to speak. When you are before him, you will have nothing to fear. You will feel protected and safe as never before, like when as children you were in the arms of a parent or your grandparents. His love is limitless and without judgment. It is always there in front of you, ready to wait for you and run to your aid when you call him with all your heart. How do you get to heaven? What does it mean to open your heart? I often repeated this because even in the time I lived, others did not understand, and there were no writings or testimonies that could explain it. This is because everything is written in your soul, inside you, in each of you, regardless of the culture and education you have received. To find the right path, it is not enough to do, but you must be. Let me explain better. You must not do good because you follow the word of the Bible, but you must behave well because you are good. You must not deceive your neighbor because you respect the law of God, but simply because you are honest. You must not lie because you fear the judgment of God, but simply because you are sincere. Do not be afraid. None of you are fully these things. You are human in all your weaknesses. Even Peter, who followed me for years and knew who I really was afraid and denied me 3 times. To be so will take time. Do you think I do not understand this? Your path is long. Put in the goodwill, seek true happiness, love your neighbor as you love yourselves. This is the only law that our Father has left us. For the rest, be what you want to be, and do not be afraid, because your Father is always with you. I did not come into your world to take upon myself your sins, or at least not in the sense that you claim. If it had been so, from that moment none of you would have continued to commit wickedness. And yet, as far as I can see on that front, you really have no limits to imagination. My life should leave you with hope. Remember, for those who believe and for those who do not, it is the same. I have risen. Nothing is impossible for our Father, and this is the greatest testimony and message, hope. When you are in darkness, surrounded by shadows, in torment and suffering, continue to have faith, to persevere in love, because remember that it is precisely in those moments that suddenly, out of nowhere, the light will return. My suffering and resurrection is a message of hope for everyone. I quote a beautiful text from a song. Whoever wrote it, whether they were a believer or not, was surely inspired. If God dies, it's for 3 days and then he rises. It means that you can kill the good, but you cannot destroy it. Let those who want to understand my message. In these times, you have many tools that can transmit a lot of knowledge, but you have little wisdom and common sense to use it correctly. You have become as superficial as you are hypocritical. You no longer truly love. You chase false values and think that charity is doing it with a phone, and then flaunting it to everyone to gain visibility and money. You run, you go faster and faster, and burn the time that has been given to you in foolishness and fleeting fantasies, trying to satisfy your ego and living like addicts. You're ready to sell your soul to your neighbor for less than 30 coins. You even sell our Father for a few pennies. You constantly seek power, and for it, you are even willing to be called holy and Father, but your heart is closed. You are blind, leading the blind. Yours is an era of incredible discoveries and opportunities, exploited only for profit and power, but it is also a time when values seem to slip away like sand through the fingers. Seeing the worship of the ephemeral, the obsession with material success, wealth, and fame, deeply saddens me. These are false idols that promise happiness, but leave only an inner void. Selfishness has crept into the fabric of human relations, guiding actions and choices, leaving little room for compassion, empathy, selfless service to others. My heart breaks to see how little love there is in your streets, in your homes, in your hearts. Love for your neighbor, the fundamental value of my teaching, seems to be forgotten. In an increasingly connected society, I see growing isolation, indifference to the suffering of others, a lack of solidarity with those who are less fortunate. The obsession with power and wealth has clouded the vision of what is truly important. This unquenchable thirst not only impoverishes the spirit but also leads to injustices, inequalities, and exploitation. Power and wealth, if not used for the common good, become tools of oppression and division. It saddens me to see how indifference and cynicism have replaced hope, how aggressiveness has replaced dialogue, how selfishness has become the norm. These tendencies destroy not only the relationships between people, but also erode the moral fabric of society. Where is the sense of community gone? The desire to build a better world together? To love your neighbor means to see in every person a sacred face, a reflection of the Father's infinite love. It means to serve, to listen, to take care especially of the weakest, the forgotten, the excluded. The lack of authentic values, of a moral compass to guide your actions, is one of the greatest challenges I see. Truth, justice, humility, generosity, these values seem to have lost their meaning. Yet, they are essential for a fair, peaceful, and loving society. I invite you, as I did 2,000 years ago, to reflect on your lives, your choices, your priorities. It is time to return to the essentials, to rediscover love for your neighbor, to practice compassion, to build bridges instead of walls. Every small gesture of kindness, every act of justice, every word of truth can be a seed of change. I shared bread and fish with everyone. I didn't keep it stored away, nor did I use it to increase wealth and power. If you want to bear my name, be as I was. I address this particularly to one person. Remember that I came to serve, not to be served. Brothers, I am always close to you and each of you. Love each other, open your hearts. Forgive and do not be afraid, because I am always close to you. Despite the challenges, do not lose hope. History has shown that the human heart is capable of great goodness and transformation. Remember that every person is precious, that every life has immeasurable value. I urge you to build a society founded on love, justice, and peace, always remembering that true power lies in serving others, not in dominating them. This is my message. Yesterday is today, forever. Be simple. Use the only resource you have and cannot change, time for others, and do not be afraid of anything, because I will always be by your side. Go visit the elderly and do not leave your aging parents alone just because you see them as an obstacle to your entertainment and free time. Do not be afraid of anything. At any moment you can change your life, and finally you can truly say that you are free.